This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
As far back as I can remember, our neighborhood streets have been full of homemade stations that feature everything from mini libraries to key exchanges. I've even seen DIY vending machines that sell poetry pottery. This network of neighborhood sidewalk joy spots, as they're being called, are a combined community effort that brings out the best in our city, like our love of art, sharing, and unexpected joy. But have you ever wondered who has the time to put them up, or where most of these are even located? Well, today on CityCast Portland, we're talking with Rachel Harms-Millant, co-founder of the Sidewalk Joy Map and the creator of many of these neighborhood art installations. She's taking us on an adventure through Portland's sidewalk whimsy and has tips on where to find some of these hidden gems. It's Thursday, January 9th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. What made you want to do this project? Because this is something you do for fun, right?
Yes. So the story is we were just after the holiday season. It was January 2022. And my young kids and I were just like in a slump. We were stuck indoors. The weather was miserable. Everybody was grumpy. And I just felt like after several years of the pandemic and staying socially distant and everything like that, that I just didn't feel connected to the community. I didn't feel like I really knew Portland that well. I didn't have like a lot of places to take them to get them out of the house and kind of keep my own sanity. And so I kind of reached the end of my rope and was like, okay, I don't care where we're going. We're getting outside each day. And so I wanted to make it fun for everyone, obviously. So we made something called the Urban Explorers Club, where we took our own pictures, made our own little laminated badges. The kids each had little backpacks that had binoculars and magnifying glasses.
Wait, you made this all up for your kids? Like this?
Yes. Yeah.
You are such a cool mom. I would have died. Like, this is exactly the thing that I would have been so stoked about. This is so sweet. You made badges. Okay, sorry.
No, totally. It's funny because I think sometimes the key for me in parenting is kind of doing the things that I think are fun. It like letting my inner child kind of lead the way. And so, yeah, I would have just killed for a club like this as a kid. So we would take our badges each day and we'd bring a little field notebook. And when we first started the club, they were both really young. My youngest wasn't even 2 yet. So we would kind of like keep the outing small. They didn't need to be over the top. I looked at a list of like every list I could find of things to do in Portland because I kind of heard the phrase of, it's kind of fun to view your city as a tourist. So I thought, okay, like what are people recommending people do in Portland when they visit? Like what are some of our unique places and things to see? And I kind of crossed off everything that was indoors or cost a lot of money and started visiting the other spots. And some of the places that we got recommended to were like Morrison Street Mini Gallery, which is basically someone took a little free library and they locked it. And each month they have a new local artist install tiny versions of their work. So it's so adorable. And
Can you give me some examples?
Yes. Yeah. There's been installations of photography with tiny little photography in there. There's been installations of little ceramic works. I know my friend Michelle Briones recently did one last year where it was like a little tiny village, little tiny clay creatures and stuff. It's always very elaborate. It's always very beautiful and it changes out monthly. And so it's just such a great way to, get to explore that neighborhood where the mini gallery is located, as well as getting to kind of learn about some local artists. So that was like the kind of thing that I would try to take the kids to, something like that, but just something to get us out of the house. And then we wander.
So basically what I'm hearing is that Portland already had most of these things out. Whenever I go on a walk, I'm always surprised by how many mini libraries there are. Or, I'm sure you've passed the houses where they just created a maze for squirrels. Yeah. And I've seen several houses that are just like, I have a ton of squirrels. I'm going to enjoy myself. Just make them run mazes and stuff, which I think is hilarious.
Totally. So after coming across a couple of places like this, I would stand there just being incredibly thankful for this person who did this, who put out a sidewalk duck exchange for rubber ducks. And my kids would just be so thrilled. They're swapping ducks and picking out which one they're going to trade and bring home. Or we'd go to the tiny creature swap, which is just basically small toys. And they would swap a toy and they would always be at home thinking which one they want to bring back and share. And I would stand there just looking at the house wondering, man, like who did this? Like who had this idea? Who put out something for the public to enjoy? And there's like a lot of trust in that too, that they put out something that obviously they cared about, took time to build and put this out. And I was so hoping people would come outside and I could kind of just grill them and find out what kind of people these were. So my kids and I, after a few months of this, in March of 2022, we made our own installation. And this was both in part because we were really hoping to instill that same sense of whimsy and wonder and joy as someone turned a corner. We wanted someone to have that same sense of, oh my gosh, what's this? Feeling that we'd had coming across these spaces. But I really wanted to use that as an opportunity to be like, hey, I have a spot like this and I kind of wanted to interview you. Like, look, we're both part of this club of something installed in our yard. I felt like that was kind of my ticket into that world. So I made a spot. It was just a dinosaur diorama. It's expanded quite a bit, which we can talk about. And using that Instagram, I made an Instagram for it just to kind of document some of the updates, but mostly so I could feature these other spots around town, because as we would hear somebody come across our spot, the kids and I would tumble out of the house and be like, oh, if you like dinosaur dioramas, you're probably going to love this other one. And we'd be telling them about all these different spots around town, which people just hadn't heard of. And I couldn't believe it. Like I'd obviously not heard of them.
Well, they're not part of the Explorers Club.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no sidewalk joy map. So we spent quite a bit of time outside just telling people, oh, you've got to check out, there's this Lego minifig exchange, or you would absolutely love this toy car library, And so I started featuring these places on my Instagram. And then through featuring spaces, there was a new space in town that was a free little art gallery, and it's called PDX Flag, and it's made by Grant Brady. So I interviewed him, featured his gallery, and he, similarly to me, has like a extreme passion for these spaces. He was biking around all over Portland, showcasing some of the ones I'd featured, finding new ones, that kind of thing. And so the guy who runs the Poetry Pottery Box, Dan, finally commented and said, man, I wish there was a map of these spaces. And Grant and I just were like, yes, we'll take that on. So it was quite a bit of work, and we interviewed all the places and got photos for them all. And we launched the first version of the Sidewalk Joy map in January of 2023. So it's coming up on the 2-year birthday of it.
That's so cool.
So when we first launched it, I believe there was 24 spaces on it. And as of 2 days ago, we just passed 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think it's one of those, like, if they build it, they'll come, like you started this map and people are like, oh, I want to be part of the map, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I think so. Part of the growth of the map was, we put out the first iteration and we were like, hey, if you've seen a spot like this, tell us so we can put it on our map too. These are all the spots we know about, but we know we don't know all of them. So many more spots have been suggested that have already existed in Portland. Mm-hmm. And then a ton of spots have been created since this.
Well, speaking of newer spots, I hear that you have a lot of interactive art installations now in your front yard since you started the map and since you started, searching. So if anyone were to visit today, like what would you find?
Yes. So we obviously have the Dinorama. That was our original flagship. We quickly added the Dino Exchange for the interactivity. So now you can trade all things dino related at the Dino Exchange. I made something called Small Scenes, which is like a little library box modeled after Morrison Street Mini Gallery. And I do like a little diorama each month, like a little bedroom scene, with a tiny bed and a little guitar in the corner kind of thing. Or it's a raccoon going to school for first day of first grade, holding up one of the little signs saying how big she is kind of thing. So it's just whatever kind of small scene I want to create. Then I have a mug exchange, because who doesn't want a new mug, but also who doesn't have lots of extra mugs?
My God, seriously, right? And then you're just kind of like, I don't want this mug anymore,
Yeah, exactly. Or you just see one, you're like, okay, I would trade for that. And then we have a seasonal one, which is the ornament swap. Mm-hmm. We have a teeny tiny library for teeny tiny books. And below that, embedded in the fence, behind a tiny metal speakeasy door, is a ultra tiny library for ultra tiny books. And so those are books like about the size of my thumb.
Do they actually have like a story in it?
Oh, you know it. Yes.
What?
Yeah.
So who's making these tiny little books?
I really like small things.
So it's you. You're making these little books.
I'm making these little books. Once in a while, we will get a trade and I lose my mind. But yeah, I put out little books. A lot of them are kind of about the sidewalk joy spots around town. Like I made one about the sidewalk duck spot or about Grant's free little art gallery, that kind of thing. And I also have the bee stop and the squirrel station. This one is because I do pottery at my kitchen counter and I like to look out and see the wildlife. And so I put up one that looks like a little free library, and all the quote unquote books, because they're really just painted pieces of wood, have squirrel puns. And then there's 3 little baskets where I sometimes fill them with, various nuts, and the squirrels come by and, borrow some nuts.
Have they ever gotten in your attic?
No, and I'm
curious.
a little worried about that. I had that in a past house, so I don't fill it often because I feel like it's more a novelty for me when I know I'm going to be sitting at the kitchen counter, but I definitely don't want to be attracting more squirrels to the area.
Yeah, I have a few fruit trees and I'm just like, I don't know how to get them out of here.
Totally.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we return, let's talk about vandalism.
Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Sports app today and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So one of the things that maybe stops me from ever wanting to do this is because I really am worried about vandalism. Has that ever occurred to your things? Because people are sometimes just like shitty,
Yeah, totally. I'd say that's probably the #1 question I get. That and just like, how do I make a spot? Those are the 2 ones I get. How do I make a spot? And like, what do you do about vandalism? Or more often, how do you prevent it? And I would say there's not a surefire way to prevent it. There's totally things you can do. If you have an exchange and you're finding that it's getting cleaned out often, I do have some tips that can help reduce that. But originally, the Dinorama wasn't behind plexiglass. It was actually just a board on my fence. And I set up a little scene and I glued down some dinos doing fun stuff like riding bikes. And, within a day or two, a couple of them had disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if it was just, maybe like a kid walking by who thought they were for the taking, or if it was someone who was purposely trying to damage it. I had no idea. But, when it first happened, I was like, oh, man, if this small thing, which literally could be someone not even malicious, hurts my heart, then do I have what it takes to make something bigger and better and have that potentially get damaged? But I decided to just go for it. Knock on wood, I really would hope that my installations don't get severely damaged. We've had our fair share of doors being torn off or a couple things being taken that weren't supposed to be taken, or, even the little tiny ultra library I had got ripped out and wandered away with 3 times in the first week. I've had my share of stuff like that, but I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. The Dinorama and this whole thing to me is so much bigger than the structure now. I have met, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of people. I've met folks who have traveled here, several groups from New Zealand and Australia, and lots of groups from Canada. And they came down to Portland. They'd seen the Sidewalk Joy map. I'm not going to say that they came here just for the Sidewalk Joy map, but they were close enough to Portland or in Portland, and they decided to make a day or 2 of traveling around to see these kind of spots. And I've connected with people, made friends all over the world. And I just have this huge, wonderful, beautiful, positive community that restores my faith in humanity, 6 times a day. And so again, I would hate for something to happen to my installations, but this is so much bigger than my installations now. Somebody could uproot every one of them and wander away in the night, and I wouldn't lose that community I've made. I wouldn't lose that connection that I felt with Portland. And so to anyone who's considering making a spot but worried about vandalism, there's not a way to 100% protect from it, but it kind of comes down to you asking yourself, is the positive going to outweigh the potential negative for you?
Yeah, is it worth it? Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is, we now have 100 spots in town. There have been some more severe incidences of vandalism, but you would think that this would happen all the time. That like with this many spaces around town, like, every few days something would happen to one of them. And that's just not been the case. It does not happen as often as you would think. By and large, the community reaction to these spaces is so positive and so wonderful and so loving. And I think it's just what a great way to reconnect with your community and get to know your neighbors.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some places around town. Like, what are some of your favorite spots in the sidewalk joy map?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, first off, I will have to say having to pick a favorite is like having to pick a favorite child. So
totally.
I'm just going to name some of the, I have a real soft spot in my heart for some of the ones that my kids and I first came across. So these are some of the older ones in town. Sidewalk Ducks is a take a duck, leave a duck, rubber duck trading exchange that was started in July of 2011. So that one's in the Alberta Arts District. And it's actually a really cute story how it started. The family had extra rubber ducks from a birthday party and they set them out for the neighbors, like, feel free to take a duck. And instead of taking ducks, people swapped ducks because it's Portland,
Yeah.
So they came out thinking that these ducks would be all adopted to new homes. And instead they had different ducks there. So, the exchange was born, no signs, no social media, no nothing, just people swapping ducks at this random stoop, in this cul-de-sac. And they even had to move to New York to pursue schooling for a few years. And so I had a long-term friend living in their house. And when they got back, the exchange was still going strong. So
that's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I wonder if, have you heard about the Jeep Wrangler duck? And I wonder if, you know what I mean? Like that was already going and people had ducks and they're just like, well, here you go.
Yeah. They definitely have had some Jeep folks come by and bring them a bunch of ducks and get into it. The car library was a big one for us. It's just like exchange little matchbox cars. Just so delightful. And then Tiny Creature Swap, which I mentioned briefly, was really special. And the concept was made by a 7-year-old at the time. So there's several spots in town that have been made by kids, which I think is particularly amazing that we live in a community that not only allows kids to dream like this, but then can preserve and care for their creation. And then there's one called Twin Pines Country Club, which is literally a 6-hole golf course someone put in their front yard just for the public to enjoy.
That's so cool. Where's that at?
So cool. It's actually pretty close to us. It's just across 82nd, a little south of Yamhill.
Oh.
They have a locker on site you can call and you can get a code to access the locker, and then you can check out a ball and clubs and just play around. When we have visiting guests getting to be like, hey, do you want to play a round of free golf in someone's front yard? It's just such a Portland thing, obviously. A newer one is called the Croc Stop. It's made by a local artist, Abby Houston, and she already had Tiny Tabor Art Gallery, which is a free little art gallery, but then she repurposed one of those. Have you seen those poetry stands around town where people put poetry in them?
Yeah.
She repurposed one into exchange for the little charms that go in Croc shoes, and that one is quite popular and very beloved. And then special shout out to Grant, because Grant is the co-creator of the PDX Sidewalk Joy Map, and he has the free little art gallery in town, and he changes that with installations. Sometimes it's got tentacles or it has like features theme of a artist, like Keith Haring. I've just learned a lot about art from Grant. He just puts a lot of effort into his as well.
That's so cool. I live really close to a Mike Bennett keychain exchange.
That was the one on the tip of my tongue, but I was like, no, I need to also make sure I'm like talking about Grant too. Yeah. Mike just made the keychain exchange, and that one's so really close to Mike's keychain exchange is Sidewalk Ducks. They're both in the same neighborhood.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's one here in St. John's because of Wonderwood.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
And he has one outside his house too, and it's in the Alberta Arts area, and it you can leave a trinket and he'll turn it into a keychain, which is kind of fun. So people can come get a keychain and then leave various things, and it's been interesting to see what he's turned into a keychain.
Yeah. I've lived in Portland since like the early aughts, and one of the things that I would really love is when people used to have these like mini art galleries in their garages. Yes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no, I was jumping the gun. I know about Free Little Art Galleries.
No,
Tell me more.
There was one on Mississippi, kind of close, where Mississippi turns into Albina, and somebody would just like on the weekends open up their garage and just show their art or their friends' art, and it was just like this gallery. And I was curious, like, have you seen any more of those, or is that just like a thing of the past?
I haven't seen that specifically showcasing someone's art like that. I have seen things like rock hounds, and they're collecting rocks and then kind of do like a rock sale on the weekends, or pottery sale out of their house. There's a little house in Southwest that they turn their garage into a coffee shop. But those are all money making, they're not necessarily like free, like you're talking about. I have not seen that anymore, but I say we bring it back.
Yeah, isn't that cute? I always like that. So what are you working on right now that listeners can look forward to seeing in the future?
So I currently am making 5 more mug exchanges that are going to places all over Oregon and into Washington.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. There's been a lot of people saying like, oh, I really want this. I don't know how to make it. And I was like, well, if you're on my way somewhere or close enough that you can come to me, like maybe let's just make it happen. So I've been busy making those. There's even one coming to the St. John's neighborhood, hopefully within the week.
Oh, this is so cool.
Yes. And then I'm hoping to do a Sidewalk Joy workshop maybe in the spring or summer for people who might want to create it. We did one a couple years ago at the Craft Factory, and it went well, and it was really nice to meet folks. So I'm hoping to maybe get that started again. And then I'm working on a free scavenger hunt for Montevilla. And I am hoping to enter the world of, I'm going to say this wrong, but is it geocaching or geocaching?
I think it's geocaching.
Okay.
I was curious if there are any of that you were just like, oh, I wish someone put this one up. You know what I mean?
Like I've seen them elsewhere in the world and want them here?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So I just launched the worldwide map. And that means I'm getting to see the ones all over the entire freaking world. And it's been really, really, really cool.
There's a world map of these joy spots?
Yeah, the worldwide map has led me to other spots. And I'm like, we need that here. One of them is micro bakeries. There's some that are for profit, but a lot that are just free, little free bakery. Apparently, if you give away food and it's for free.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
And they're like, go ahead, get whatever.
Get poisoned,
Nobody cares.
Not that happens, But so Seattle has, I think, 4 of them. They have like 4 little free bakeries. And I'm just like, God damn, that would do so well here. Buffalo, there's a person I am connected with in Buffalo, upstate New York. And they actually have kind of started using a lot of the concepts we have here, which is so fun. They have a sister crock stop, a sister dino exchange, but they have the fairy exchange. And it's all for just like fairy mini cutesy things. They have like fairy scenes. It's just so freaking fun. It's covered in moss and it's so whimsical. And I'm like, we need a fairy exchange. Are you kidding me? There's one coming soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, a unicorn exchange coming here.
Where are people even finding this stuff? Are they making them? Like, I don't even, they're making them. So the miniatures they make. Okay.
No. A lot of them I think are just found things. Like if you want miniatures, I'd say go to Collage. They have quite a few. Anyway, there's a lot of really neat ones that I've seen around the world that I think would do well in Portland. We do have the one, it's called the FOPO, because it's Foster Powell, Fibrary, Little Free Fibrary, because it's just for knitting, crocheting, yarn, textiles.
Oh, that's so smart.
I know. That one's a huge hit here.
Well, Rachel, this has been so cool. I appreciate you taking the time to explain your world a little bit more with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real treat.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.